I think now more than ever, businesses should be considering how they would respond to a significant incident, whether that be a ransomware attack or a significant hardware failure or any other potential incident that could impact business continuity. And so I wanted to take a few minutes just to go over some tips that we have provided to our clients as they've put together their incident response plans, as well as provide some information on how Jackson Thornton Technologies can help with business continuity. So how do you respond to an incident? Well, the first thing that I would ask is, what is your contingency plan? What is your written, documented plan to respond to whatever incident might occur? Again, whether that might be a cybersecurity incident or a significant failure of your technical hardware. At a bare minimum, I think you should have policies, procedures, and technologies to ensure that all critical information is backed up regularly and can be restored when necessary. And that does take some time to assess what that critical information is. I think a lot of businesses get stung when they have an incident because they start to realize that all the critical information in their organization wasn't being backed up. The information is stored in silos, and it's important to identify those silos, make sure that you are backing that information up on a regular basis. All that information, all those backup processes should also be documented and keep them maintained and keep them current. Data backup and business continuity is not a set it and forget it type deal. It needs to be maintained and it needs to be kept contemporary as things change and as those data silos continue to grow and multiply. And you need to keep in mind that disaster recovery planning, business continuity planning, is much more involved and more diverse than just simple data backup and recovery. Provide a couple of definitions that might help you distinguish the two. Data backup, just a copy of data. It's set there for the purpose of restoring that information in the event of a loss. Business continuity, on the other hand, is in the event of a disaster, whether it be security threat, human error, so on and so forth. Users never lose access to the critical data or their applications. The organization is able to continue operating regardless of the event that might occur. Now, it's very important that on an ongoing basis, you're verifying your backup process. Remember what I said, backup is not a set it and forget it type deal. And you need to validate, you need to verify that backups are working successfully, and you need to test those backups. You need to make sure that the first time you actually restore from the backup isn't when the incident occurs. And the frequency and the complexity of your testing procedure should be determined based on the size and complexity of your organization. Some organizations are fully justified in performing ongoing full tests of their data backup plan. Other organizations may decide that it's appropriate to do a little bit different testing procedure. The frequency may be different. The type of restore may be different. The amount of data to be restored may be a little smaller than a full restoration of the backup. So you need to consider that when you're thinking through your testing policy. One thing you may want to consider is together simulation or some sort of scripted scenario that would help in the testing process. Again, consider the frequency. Are we doing this once every year, every 6 months? And if you're working with a data backup and recovery vendor, ask them to assist in this process. A lot of the reputable data backup vendors will provide assistance in the restoration process, but you need to ask for their assistance, and you need to ask if there's going to be an additional fee or charge for that assistance. So what should you look for if you're evaluating business continuity solutions? Maybe you're putting together your incident response plan and you determine that what you have in place right now is insufficient. What would you look for when evaluating these solutions? Well, the first thing that I would advise is look for solutions that have the shortest recovery, quickest recovery points within your budget, right? So you need to figure out, how fast do you need to be able to recover? Is it instantaneous? Is 1 hour acceptable? Is 4 hours acceptable? How much data could you potentially lose in a significant incident? Are you willing to lose a day's worth of information that may have to be rekeyed? And then also, how does it fit within your budget? The shorter we make that delta, in other words, as we get into that instantaneous recovery, of course, the expense grows. So you have to figure out where's your sweet spot when coming up with your RTOs and your RPOs. You also want to ask about data integrity and data encryption. You want to make sure that Any data that is sent offsite is encrypted in transit, and you want to make sure that any data that is sitting in an offsite facility is encrypted at rest. That's a good best practice, and you want to vet out any vendor for those particular security protocols. You want to understand completely the process by which systems are restored in the event of the disaster. You need to know what exactly is being backed up and what can be recovered. And those are just good, standard, best practice questions to ask any vendor that you may be vetting. Know your role in the backup process. Is it a situation where you just simply pick up the phone and ask the vendor to start restoring data? Or are you going to be required to actually have active involvement in the restoration process? Where is the data center that the offsite data backups are being sent to located? Is it a facility that's owned and maintained by the vendor? Is it a situation where that particular portion of the offsite backup service is being subcontracted out to a third party? You want to know physically where that's located, especially if your data is being sent overseas. The rules and regulations for overseas data backup data centers can be a little different. So you want to know if the data is being sent outside of the United States. Is the solution compliant with regulatory requirements? If you're covered by HIPAA or FISMA or FERPA, you want to make sure that the backup service is compliant with any regulatory body that you may be governed by. Has the data center, the offsite data center, been independently verified? Does it have SOC 2 Type 2 certification? You want to ask for proof, documentation that the data center has gone through a formal vetting process and has been certified by a reputable auditor. And then finally, what is the recovery process in the event of a true disaster? If you have a complete loss of your physical building, what does the recovery process look like? How quickly can you restore operations if the physical plant is completely gone? Those are just some questions that you would want to ask any potential backup and disaster recovery vendor. So I want to take a minute just to talk about Datto and how JTT can help in partnership with Datto. This particular graphic shows how the Datto Cirrus solution works. This is a solution that JTT not only promotes amongst our clients, but also uses internally. We facilitate our complete backup and disaster recovery process using Datto technology. So it's a technology we certainly believe in. In this graphic, what you see on the left side is your production environment. So you could have virtual servers, virtual desktops. You could have physical servers, physical desktops. Really doesn't matter. Back that particular machine up to what we call the Datto device, the Datto appliance, the appliance that sits locally. So we take those images, those complete images, and we place those on what's called the Datto device, the local appliance that we can restore both individual files as well as images on locally, really within a matter of seconds. Now that data on that Datto device is also being sent to the Datto cloud, securely encrypted in transit and encrypted at rest in the Datto cloud, where it can be spun up literally in minutes in the Datto cloud. So in the event of a true disaster, we can restore systems in the Datto cloud very quickly so that you can ensure complete restoration of operations. So there's a couple of other really neat technologies that Datto provides. One is ransomware detection. So one of the things that the Datto technology does is it analyzes changes in file structures as it completes a backup. And if it notices that file structures have been changed, which could be an indicator of a ransomware attack, then it notifies us and lets us know that there may be an incident occurring and we need to take a deeper dive into the actual production system to see if we might be having a cyber attack. So that's one really neat thing that actually adds on to the layers of security that you are implementing within your organization to help us get ahead of any potential ransomware attack. Another thing that the Datto solution provides is something called backup insights. And what this allows us to do is to compare separate backups to see exactly what changed between point A and point B. So what you see on this particular screen on the left is a backup that took place on October the 2nd at 11 o'clock. And on the right, October 3rd at 12 o'clock. And what we can see highlighted are file changes between those two backups. That really helps us identify which files have changed across 2 points in time. And this can also help us identify whether or not we may be having a security incident as we see what file changes took place between two separate points in time. Another thing that we really like about Datto is the screenshot verification. What Datto allows us to do is essentially perform a test of the backup process. After the Datto appliance completes its backup process, it actually boots that particular machine up to the login screen. And then it provides us a screenshot of that login screen, which actually shows that if we needed to, we could boot that machine up and log into it after every successful backup. So again, this is like a test that we can perform on a regular basis, and it's proof, it's a security blanket, if you will, to let us know that if we had to recover using the Datto technology, that we could do so. So how can JTT help? Well, the first thing that I would recommend is if you have questions, if you're wondering exactly what you need to do as it relates to improving your ability to respond to an incident, we can help with a risk assessment. One of the things that we do during a risk assessment is we identify where those data silos are. So we can help you identify where the data sits and whether you're at risk of losing that data given your current backup technology. We can also provide guidance on sizing an appropriate backup and disaster recovery solution. All backup systems aren't alike, and one business may need a much smaller and much less robust backup system than another organization. So we can help you understand what the appropriate sizing is for your particular company. We, of course, can provide a turnkey implementation. We can provide you with the local hardware and software, as well as provide the service to get that data off-site. And we can provide a fully managed service. So we can manage your backup process. We can oversee that on a day-to-day basis, and we can make sure that your backups are running successfully and you have the ability to respond to any incident that might occur. If you have any questions, if you'd like to talk to us about backup and disaster recovery, we would love to help you. My number is on the screen. My email is on the screen. We hope you have a great day, and thank you very much.